one Lord, one faith, one baptism. A priest friend of mine the other day, I was admiring these words writ large on the belfry of the brand new Benedictine monastery at Rostrevor, a place in the midst of the wee north where Protestantism is at its highest, and they wanted to be there as a factor of peace and unity and harmony in the Lord, remembering the bonds of old. Have Christians not better things to do than throw grenades? It happens to us as well in the cybersphere. The virtual grenades that hit hard and we can't see the face at the other end. Trench warfare, ever deeper and ever more bitter. Beware! There is another approach, my friends. It's this. And it's perhaps something that in the contemplative life one is more exposed to than in the active life. It's the hearing and gazing mode, where eventually, by looking at Jesus in the eyes, one picks up his thoughts on the matter, and on the matter in general. Love. He made us. He wants us. And we must do the same. I want to make a jump with you to when I was in the other camp. Because when one has been there, one knows exactly the mindset. But one thing I know, where there is fidelity to what one sees, there is no sin. The sin comes, as Newman pointed out, when the doubt starts to come forth. And then one has a choice. One can carry on regardless, or one can say, let's look at this. And with a mind as open as God, one asks, Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? And that, by the way, is the point really at which all changes or doesn't. My best friend, when I was an Anglican clergyman, way back as we were growing up in school and college, was the son of the vicar of Cardiff, high churchman, and he could see things, but yet he wouldn't move. We would spend a long time in prayer together, even before the Catholic Blessed Sacrament. He sort of knew, but there was something that held him back. I want to make a jump back to that time, because we didn't have, as Baptists, the sacraments, essentially. Baptism was valid, but all we had was the Word. But boy, did we have the Word! I remember the first that we had going into chapel, we would bow our heads and ask for a word. In the vestry, the preacher would preach with, or rather pray earnestly with his deacons for what we called grief. The dew, that the dew would come. And of course, the whole assembly would plead in rousing hymns in four-part harmony in Welsh for a word. And then eventually the crunch would come, the half-hour sermon. And you could hear a pin drop. And it was a whole art. The whole body would enter into it. And even as children, we would watch for it. We would watch. Yes, he's warming up. He's warming up. We have ignition. We have liftoff! And off he would go. We would call hoil, sail. And then, of course, the whole assembly would rock the church with hymns repeated because they couldn't stop it. All in four-part harmony. Do you think that was nothing? Zero, nihil, nada before God? I tell you it wasn't. There was grace in the air. And it meant a lot to get out of that grace of familiar things where one had met God before. In the simplicity of sincerity. sincerity. Because when there are no props, it's there or it isn't, and you can't fool yourself so quickly. The preacher had to be an expert in leading into prayer. He would close his eyes and he would for 10 minutes lead the whole assembly in beautiful classical Welsh without a word prepared, just into the Most High in that mystery which he suggested simply with words and intonation. Oh Lord! Was there nothing at all in the air? I say there was! But, and this is the hinge, if in that mystery one senses perhaps there is something more, then one has to listen. And do you know, of all places, the doubt came from my Sunday school teacher. I told you before, I'll tell you again what happened one day. He was a great Sunday school teacher. He would get us to act things for the whole assembly in the vestry. And one day, we were doing the whole of the story of the Bible, from the scriptures to modern times, translation and all, and I was St. Jerome. But we had to act it as in a medieval cloister, and we had the lights out, and we came in procession, and he told us in Welsh, go at the speed of peas and chips, to carry the same melody all the way through, and then, wait for it, when you get to the altar which you prepare, you must go on one knee, genuflection, and I came out. What? Priesthood! And he looked at me all in Welsh now, and he said, Beatrice, if it weren't for the Catholic Church, you wouldn't be where you are now. Put me in place. And one day, he came out with this, and we got to the 6th chapter of St. John. The experts tell us that that's about the Eucharist. Our Sunday school teacher, with a broad mind, and he came to me years later and said, man, if Alan hadn't taken so seriously the things I'd said, he wouldn't be where he is now. I just close that parenthesis, my friend, because that's the point that usually people don't move on with. Now I want to go further. You can get into this mode of comparing that side and this side, Protestants, Eastern Orthodox, Catholics, and look at the wrong area. Because when it came to university, there were a lot of things wrong with the way that things are handled in the Catholic student body. A lot of things right, the things that the evangelicals did, and I used to drift a bit towards them for the good sermons they had. But the point wasn't there. The point is this. God has a project. He founded a church, not a movement, not a club, not an institution, but the mystical body. And there only is the fullness of what he had prepared for us. And all the rest has come by overflowing from there. Do you see the difference? You can cling on to the overflow, but this is the fullness meant. I'll tell you a story. Some time ago, a fervent holy priest in Poland, Jarek Kilecki, wanted to promote devotion to the Virgin of the Assumption, to which the young Karol Wojtyla had a great devotion in the parish where he was a young priest in after ordination. And so he commissioned a very good big copy of it and wanted to take it around all the places that he could, even in the world. He was in Rome, and out of the blue, an invitation came to go to Medjugorje. So he took it with him. He got there, he saw what was going on in Medjugorje, and he was spiritually cheesed off. He said, business. Business. There's no apparition going on here. And suddenly, a huge odour of roses came at him out of the blue. He turned to his pilgrims and said, who around you is using some kind of scent or roses with scent on them? No one. An invitation then came out of the blue. Could you bring this image that you have with you to the place where there are a lot of priests on retreat here, and it is actually going to coincide with the apparition to Ivan? And he did. And they were all, therefore, in prayer before this big icon which he had prepared. He still could only say to the Blessed Virgin, I know you are here because you are everywhere. He wasn't convinced. But then something happened later on. He was on the bus with his own pilgrims, and he had on his knees this big icon that he had prepared. At that moment, a huge gust of miraculous perfume of roses and incense came out of it, covered him, and everyone in the bus, wanted to pray mode. They actually went on their knees on the seats in the bus, and didn't stop there. They said, look at the sun! And the sun started to do things before them. And for them, it came out. The host came out of the sun with IHS on it and came towards them in bright light. And the driver was an evangelical. And he said, after this, I believe in the Madonna. I am not an evangelical. I am a Catholic. Do you see the point? All the rest, trimmings and whatever you want. Yes, it's grace bringing, but this is it. And no matter what's going on in the periphery, this is the bit. And it's hugely central to us, whatever else is going on in all the parameters of the church and its life. And it's closer to us than we think. Even this week, something happened in the hermitage itself. A little hint that this is it. It was in the hour of mercy on the Feast of St. Matthew, and I just recorded a homily on Follow Me, all about Jesus precisely, the centre of it all. And there were 3 of us present. Afterwards, make thanksgiving on our knees, as we would, to our mercy chaplet. And they're just about to get up. One of the people said, kneeling, very shyly, just not that way inclined at all, something happened. When you were elevating the host, something happened. Your hands, remember I faced it always the other way in the hermitage, your hands were surrounded with a bright white light which surrounded both the hands and the host together, inseparably bound. Do you see what that's saying? It's saying, the Lord is saying, yes, follow me, it's about me. And whatever's going on around in the church, the priesthood is the essential part of it, and only we have it. So don't let anyone take you in on this one, my friends. However, having said that, there is one thing I want to warn you about. On this weekend, when we think about Padre Pio, I do it in his name. In the 60s, he saw what was happening. He lamented and wept. Think, he said, how our ancestors on the day before Holy Communion would prepare the previous evening with great prayer and fervour and joy. The devotion they had to receiving Jesus, the thanksgiving afterwards. And now what is happening is before all the changes now. Casualness. The problem is there, my friends. Abuse of grace in the Catholic life. We take it for granted. We have become hardened of heart. Do you know what Padre Pio said? It would be easier for the church, for the earth to exist without the sun than for the world to exist without